أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا، فمن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله سبحانه وتعالى، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد. My dearest brothers and sisters, you know, here in the West we have many challenges, and I wanted to highlight to you one of them today, which I believe many of you may not even be aware of. You see, from the greatest people were the prophets, and then you had the greatest of them, our Prophet ﷺ. But after the prophets, who were the greatest of all people? It was the companions of the Messenger ﷺ. And from them, the most beloved to the Messenger ﷺ were his family, Ahlul Bayt. And from Ahlul Bayt, you had the likes of Ali radiallahu ta'ala. These were the family members of the Prophet ﷺ, whom we are all supposed to love, revere, respect, and learn from their legacy. However, in our time, especially in the West, the biography, the life, the legacy of these individuals is not really known to us. It's not heard of much. Add to that the people that speak about Ahlul Bayt and the likes of Ali radiallahu ta'ala are not us. Who are they? They are the Shia. And as you know, in a week or so, it will be the year 36 rather. The new year in the Islamic calendar. And what is the first month of that new year? Muharram. So Muharram is a time where these figures are spoken about a great deal, but not by us, by the Shia. And when they speak about them, many of the things they say are inaccurate, false, and sometimes outright lies and fabrications. And so with this problem in mind, I want to dedicate today's khutbah on exploring the life of Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. You see, Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu has so many virtues. In fact, Imam Ahmad rahimahullah said that there is no companion who has more authentically narrated virtues than this one here, Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So many virtues regarding Ali radiallahu ta'ala that they number in terms of narration more than the other companions. Ali radiallahu ta'ala was born some 5 or 10 years before the Messenger of Allah received revelation. So the Prophet ﷺ is around 30-35 years old when Ali is born. Now, who was the father of Ali? Abu Talib. Who was Abu Talib? The beloved uncle of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Talib was the one who took care of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has become a man, married to Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, he has another younger son, who is Ali. In fact, he has so many sons that Abu Talib found it difficult to look after all of them. And so the Prophet ﷺ came to him and said, let us lighten your load. Let me take care of one of your children. And so he gave to him in his care Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Which means, my brothers and sisters, that Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu grew up in the care of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even as a young child, he was there living with him, being educated by him, experiencing the life of the Prophet ﷺ in a unique way that everyone else was not privy to. And it was around 9 years of age when the Prophet ﷺ received revelation. Let me tell you something. The Prophet ﷺ explicitly spoke about his great love for Ali radiallahu ta'ala. He said, "Man kuntu mawlahu fa'aliyyun mawlahu, Allahumma wali man walahu wa 'adi man 'adahu." He said, that whoever I am a protector of, then Ali radiallahu ta'ala is also a protector of. And then he said, oh Allah, he made a dua. Whoever befriends him, meaning Ali, then Allah befriend him. And whoever shows enmity towards him, then may you, Allah, show enmity towards him too. This narration was classed as authentic by Ahmad Shakir rahimahullah. Now, 9 years of age, and he witnesses the Prophet ﷺ and Khadija radiallahu ta'ala praying. And he says to the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Muhammad, what is this that you are doing? And the Prophet ﷺ told him that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends prophets, and I am one of those prophets, and this here is an act of worship to Allah. And I ask you, Ali, he invited him to Islam, he said, worship none save Allah and disbelieve in Lat and Uzza, the famous demigods of that time. Ali radiallahu ta'ala said, I need to speak to my father first. Yeah? He was shocked. This is something new. He was taken aback. However, the Prophet ﷺ said to him, if you are not going to believe, then don't tell your father. And so that night passed, and in the morning, Ali radiallahu ta'ala thought about it and said, you know what, this man speaks nothing but the truth, it must be true. And so he accepted Islam as a child of 9 years of age. If you have any children 9 years of age, what are they doing around that time? Playing games, watching cartoons? Ali radiallahu ta'ala invited by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and on his own accord became a believer. And with that, he became the first young free man to become a Muslim. The first ever youth to accept Islam was this man here, Ali radiallahu ta'ala. And so in Makkah now he's living with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he supported him in his da'wah. 2 amazing events took place. One of them is that he was the one who brought Abu Dharr al-Ghifari to Islam. You may know the story. Abu Dharr al-Ghifari is a stranger to Makkah. He lived somewhere outside of Makkah. But he knew that life of polytheism wasn't right, and that Allah should be worshipped alone. But how exactly, when he heard of a man named Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam who was supposed to be a prophet? And so he comes to Makkah as a stranger, trying to seek him out. But at that time, in the first 3 years of Islam, the Prophet ﷺ kept his da'wah private. It was a secret propagation, if you like, of Islam. And so it was difficult for Abu Dharr to find out who he was. Now Ali radiallahu anhu spotted him. He noticed his man coming and staying near the Kaaba, and he's a stranger. So he monitored him, and then he invited him to stay around his own house. Through that incident, he got to know that this man is a sincere person. But he never told him and asked him, why have you come? Only after the 3rd night, he said to him, why have you come to Makkah? And then Abu Dharr, who now trusted Ali, told him, I have come to look for this man, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so that day, he told him, I will take you to him. And he said to him, I'll make a little, pointer, that if we're being followed, if I do this sign, then you go your own way. However, he managed to lead him to Dar al-Arqam, which was, if you like, the headquarters of Islam at that time, and where he met the Prophet ﷺ and became a Muslim. He embraced Islam. That was one amazing thing, and from that little incident, we learn how Ali radiallahu ta'ala was very cautious and very protective of the Prophet ﷺ, and also very smart as well, that he wanted to try and verify, is this person for real or not? And when he had verified, only then did he bring him to the Prophet ﷺ. But the second incident is said to be the greatest sacrifice of Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, second to none. What was that? Well, it was when the Prophet ﷺ was told to migrate to Medina. At this point, the Quraysh had become so fed up of this man Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that they plotted to kill him, to murder him. In fact, they went to his house and lay await outside, wanting to ambush him. Allah inspired to the Prophet that would be the case. And he told Ali radiallahu ta'ala that you stay lay on my bed. When they see that this bed is occupied thinking it's me, they won't come out. and in the cover of night I will leave. Now imagine, the most elite people of a country have put a bounty on your head. They're after you and they've sent their warriors to come and kill you. They're outside of your home. And you ask somebody else, could you stay in my place while I leave? Imagine the courage and bravery of Ali radiallahu ta'ala to accept that. To stay in the bed of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam knowing that he could be killed. But the Prophet told him that this is my green garment. Wrap up in that, lay in my bed and no harm will come to you. And he held on to those words. And he made a tremendous sacrifice, and through that the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina. This was one of the greatest, if you like, sacrifices of Ali radiallahu ta'ala. Another thing, did you know, my brothers and sisters, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a reference to Ali radiallahu ta'ala in 4 places in the Quran? Imagine, Allah referred to you in the Quran, and your reference will remain there until Yawm al-Qiyamah. What an amazing honor. And that didn't happen just once. 4 different places. In one place, in Surah Hajj, verse number 19, Allah said, هَذَانِ خَصْمَانِ اخْتَصَمُوا فِي رَبِّهِمْ. And these are the 2 parties quarreling over their master, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, that there is one party, propagating and championing the belief in Allah, versus another party who are against them. Qais ibn Ubad radiallahu ta'ala in Sahih Bukhari said Allah was referring to the time in Badr. In those days battles would begin in a very unique way. One army would send forward a man to duel with someone from the other army, and based on that maybe the war would come to an end. And that is how Badr began. You had Shayba and Utbah and Walid from the Quraysh come forward. And they told the Prophet send us people who will compete with us in a duel. Who did the Prophet send? Ali radiallahu anhu, Hamza radiallahu ta'ala, and Ubaidah radiallahu ta'ala. They came forth. And these were the 2 parties. These were the 2 parties who Allah referred to in the Quran, هَذَانِ خَصْمَانِ اخْتَصَمُوا فِي رَبِّهِمْ. And look at what happened. That triple competition was over even before it began. Ali radiallahu ta'ala and Hamza, they killed their mark even before the battle had begun. And so that incident was referred to by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. And whoever reads that verse will forever be in the remembrance of the bravery of Ali radiallahu ta'ala. I'll give you a description of Ali radiallahu ta'ala. This description was given by Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah. He said this is one of the most beautiful descriptions of Ali that I have ever come across. He said Ali radiallahu ta'ala an was of average height, on the shorter side, and he had wide black eyes. He had a handsome face like the full moon. He had also a large belly, he said, and he had a full thick beard, no hair on his head except on the back. He said he had broad shoulders, strong shoulders like the shoulders bones of a lion. And he said his forearm and his upper arm was the same size. However, despite looking like he had nimble arms, if he grabbed onto the arm of another man, that man wouldn't be able to even breathe. That was the strength and power of this man, Ali radiallahu ta'ala. Ali radiallahu ta'ala in Medina, during that phase of the mission of the Prophet ﷺ, he was there in every single battle fighting alongside the Prophet ﷺ, except for Tabuk. Except for when the Muslims went to Tabuk. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ told him to remain behind looking after Medina. He entrusted the city of Medina to Ali radiallahu ta'ala, and that is why he never went. But every single battle, Badr, Uhud, Khandaq, Khaybar, he was there alongside the Messenger of Allah. Can you imagine that? Every battle the Messenger of Allah went to, Ali radiallahu ta'ala was there fighting by his side. Such was the virtuous nature. Now, one unique quality of Ali radiallahu ta'ala, which I wanted to share with you. Number one, first of all, he was extremely knowledgeable. very well grounded in Islam and the disciplines of Islam. But that is not what I wanted to share with you today. The other unique quality of Ali radiallahu ta'ala was his zuhud. Zuhud usually translated as asceticism, to be aloof of something, not give much attention to, not care much about the dunya. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah defines zuhud. He said zuhud is to leave something which you feel will not benefit you in the life to come. You feel this thing, this luxury item, it won't benefit you. You say, you know what, I'll leave it. Why? Because I don't think it's going to benefit me in the akhirah. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, many years later, he is discussing with his companions, who was azhadun nas, who was the person who had the greatest level of zuhd. Who was that? And they said that was Ali radiallahu ta'ala. A few narrations. One narration, an eyewitness, that he saw Ali radiallahu ta'ala when Ali radiallahu ta'ala became the Khalifa. As you know, he was the fourth of the four rightly guided Khulafa. He is now the most senior person in the whole Ummah. And the Ummah now is not just confined to Makkah and Medina. The Ummah now has expanded. You have Basra, Kufa, even Egypt and Sham, all under the control of the Muslims. It is the greatest empire of that time. Ali radiallahu ta'ala is seen during that time as the Amir of the Muslims. This man named Harun ibn Atra, he said, my father saw Ali in Kufa, laying down, shivering under an old ragged cloak. And my father said to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, why do you do this to yourself? You could give this up. You could easily have more than this. What was he saying? He's saying, you are the most senior person and you are doing a job, and this job comes with its salary. In fact, you could take anything from the treasury and no one would say anything to you whatsoever, because they know of your sincerity. Despite that, you're like this. Why is that the case? Ali radiallahu ta'ala responded, he said, Wallahi, I have not taken anything from your wealth whatsoever, meaning the wealth of the Muslims, the state treasury. Even though I could take something, I've never taken anything. This cloak even, he said, I brought this from Medina, subhanAllah. This cloak, he said, I brought this from Medina. And what this is amazing about this, and what teaches us, is that the real zuhd is when a person, now listen to this, he can afford luxury in his life. He can afford to have, beautiful clothes. He can afford to go to fantastic places to eat food. He can afford many luxury things. Though he can afford it, he decides against it. Not that he's poor and he can't afford it. Do you see the difference? Ali radiallahu ta'ala was saying, even though that is true, I could take more of a salary and I could just do away with this old ragged cloak, I'm choosing not to, even though I could. Why? Because I don't think it's going to benefit me in the akhirah. Subhanallah. To think like that. Another narration, Ali radiallahu ta'ala is seen riding a donkey with both feet dangling on one side. Meaning he was riding, the cheapest form of transport at that time. I don't know, cheapest form of transport, maybe Nissan Micro, for example. Sorry for those people that drive Nissan Micro. He chose to drive a Nissan Micro, though he could have driven anything. And the way he drove it, like a normal person, subhanallah, he never wanted to show his status. He didn't want the celebrity, prestige that came with that station. In fact, he behaved in a way that showed he didn't want that. Did you get that? He didn't want that prestige. He didn't want that status amongst people. And he behaved in a way that showed, I don't want that. And that is amazing. To actively pursue a lifestyle which says to Allah, Allah, I don't want this dunya. In fact, I don't care about it. Even though I could have it, I am opting against that. And this is a lesson for us, my brothers and sisters, because third generation Muslims we are. Many of us, graduated professionals, earning better money than our parents, more disposable income. We can do things which our parents couldn't do. We have luxury in our lives and our parents didn't have. This is the time where somebody could follow the example of Ali radiallahu ta'ala and say, you know what? The reality is undeniably, living a life of luxury takes you away from the remembrance of the akhirah. True or not? The more luxury you have in your life, the weaker your iman seems to become. Why? Because with the luxury comes attachment. I love this thing. I love my, lifestyle, my food. I love these things. So your heart becomes attached to this, and as a consequence, the attachment to the life to come begins to fade away. Ali radiallahu ta'ala said, live as though you're not going to live long. Live as though you're not going to live long. Be grateful for your blessings and stay away from haram. Amazing statement. Live as though you're not going to live long, as if he's saying, if you thought you were going to die tomorrow, would you really busy yourself in trying to, adorn your lifestyle, to try and get the best property, the best car, the best career, the best academia? Would you really, spend all that day doing that? No, you wouldn't. Rather, you would focus on things that would benefit you in the akhirah. So let us take a lesson from the life of Ali radiallahu anhu, the way he was a great zahid of Allah. وأقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Ali radiallahu ta'ala became the Khalifa of the Muslims, the fourth of the Khulafa al-Rashideen, and he ruled for 4 years, 9 months and 6 days. But that rule of Ali was at a very unstable time in the history of this ummah. He had 3 major sources of contention that he had to deal with during that time. First of all, he had to deal with Abdullah ibn Saba and his movement. Who was this man, Abdullah ibn Saba? Well, he began causing problems in the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ during the time of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala. He began to fabricate narrations about Ali and about his greatness, and he began to place in the minds of simple people the notion that Ali was more than a human being, that he was more than just an ordinary human being. He began by saying Ali radiallahu ta'ala should have been the first Khalifa, if not at least before Uthman. In fact, Uthman, if you like, robbed Ali radiallahu ta'ala of his claim to the seat. But then he went further and he said Ali radiallahu ta'ala wal-iyadu billah is a God-like figure. Can you imagine? To do shirk with Allah with one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. Outrageous. But that spread, and Ali radiallahu ta'ala had to deal with that. Problem number 1. This is one extreme. On the opposite side, there was another extreme group of Muslims known as the Khawarij. During the end of the reign of Ali radiallahu ta'ala, these people who were once loyal to him turned against him and said, you know what, Ali, you don't rule by the book of Allah. And whoever doesn't rule by the book of Allah, then he is a disbeliever, and you are a disbeliever. Can you imagine? One group of people saying you are a God, another group of people saying that you are a kafir. 2 sources of great tribulation. And in the middle, there was problems with fellow companions. Some of the companions took a stance. They said, as for Uthman radiallahu ta'ala, he was killed, murdered by people. Surely the first thing we should do is take vengeance for him. Surely the first thing we should do is to take the killers of Uthman and serve justice. That is the first thing we should do. But Ali radiallahu ta'ala saw things differently. He said, no, the first thing we should do is to bring stability to the ummah. Once there is a level of stability, then we'll go after the killers of Uthman radiallahu anhu. And that escalated to the point where there was armed conflict between Muslims. Two battles occurred. The Battle of Jummah in 35 Hijri. And then a year later another battle. The Battle of Siffin. Can you imagine? The greatest Muslims, and some of them, not all of them, some of them are in an armed conflict with one another. Why? How exactly? These are our leaders. You see, I don't want to focus on what happened. I want to draw your attention to a lesson. That the simple Muslim at that time, what was he experiencing? He was experiencing a unique type of fitna. What was this unique type of fitna? Seeing your leader, seeing your leaders rather, making mistakes. Seeing your leaders do things which makes you question them. Seeing your leaders do things which bewilders you. How comes they are at arms with one another? How could that be a fitna? No? Isn't that true? I mean, someone you respect, revere, he or she is now doing things which you think, is that really right? That is a fitna. And people went to two extremes. On one extreme, people said, there's no mistake whatsoever. They're doing nothing wrong whatsoever. Neither of the parties is in the wrong. They can't be in the wrong. They're companions. They are, if you like, infallible. Is that really right to say that? That they can't make mistakes? That they're infallible? Aren't they human beings? Don't human beings, all human beings may make mistakes? Did the Prophet ﷺ say that every son of Adam will make mistakes, but the best of them are those that turn back to Allah? Isn't that what he said? That's an extreme stance, no? What is the other extreme? The other extreme, my brothers and sisters, is that people said, you made a mistake. You know what? We've lost all respect for you whatsoever. You made one mistake. We don't want to listen to anything you have to say whatsoever. Have you seen this happen in our time? Some of our leaders, sometimes they say things, is it really the right thing to say? You question. But some people do more than that. They say because he did one wrong thing, that's it. I'm not going to go sit with him anymore. I'm not going to listen to him anymore. I don't want anything to do with him. Isn't this wrong as well? Isn't that another extreme? So what is the right way? This is the main lesson that we learn from this time of tribulation. And the lesson is this, that sometimes, my brothers and sisters, Allah tests me and you through the mistakes of our leaders. Sometimes our leaders make a mistake, and with that is Allah testing us. You see, Allah could test us with money, with love, with fame. Another unique test is when you have to see your own leaders err or make mistakes. So what should you do? Well, you advise. What should you do? You ask Allah to forgive them. But what you shouldn't do is say, you know what? They never made a mistake. And what you shouldn't do is say, you know what? Because of that one mistake, we don't want anything to do with you anymore. And to denounce them and say, to hell with them. This is one lesson. Now to the end of the life of Ali radiallahu anhu. You see those Khawarij that I mentioned to you? They came up with a plan. They said that the root cause of the problem in the Ummah in our times is Ali radiallahu ta'ala and Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala in Sham. And then they plotted to assassinate Ali radiallahu ta'ala. One man in particular, Ibn Muljam, along with two sidekicks, he came to Kufa. And this is where the seat of Khilafah was now. This is where Ali radiallahu ta'ala was living. In the grand mosque of Kufa, they waited there by one of the gates that they knew Ali radiallahu ta'ala would come to Salah for. This was in Ramadan. Some scholars said this was the 21st day of Ramadan. Ibn Muljam was there. Shabib, his sidekick, was also there. When they saw Ali radiallahu ta'ala come into the masjid through that gate, then Shabib leapt upon him. Tried to strike him with his sword, but he missed, and instead he hit the gate of the masjid. But then Ibn Muljam, an incredibly evil person, he leapt upon Ali and struck him a strike with his sword right on his head. And at that, he made a run for it. He was captured, but Ali radiallahu ta'ala anh was badly wounded. The doctors came to see what was the matter, to see whether they could save Ali. But then the doctors pronounced that this wound has gone right to your brain. It has become fatal. And 3 days later, this great companion of the Prophet ﷺ passed away, radiallahu ta'ala anh. May Allah's eternal mercy and blessing be upon Ali radiallahu ta'ala anh. This, subhanallah, was the death of a shaheed that the Prophet ﷺ already told him of many, many years before. You know the story where the Prophet ﷺ, he climbed onto Mount Uhud, and with him was who? Abu Bakr, Ali, Umar, and Uthman. And Uhud began to shake. Hadith in Sahih Muslim. When the Prophet ﷺ felt it shake, he said, Uthbut, be firm, O Uhud. Why? Because upon you is a Nabi, is a Siddiq, and our Shuhada. Upon you is a Prophet and a truthful one, meaning Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and Shuhada, meaning Ali, Uthman, Umar. You will die as martyrs before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet prophesied the death of Ali as a shaheed, and that is exactly how he left this world. May Allah be eternally pleased with Ali radiallahu anhu. We ask Allah to inspire us from the lessons of the life of Ali radiallahu anhu. And we ask Allah to place the love of Ali and the family of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our hearts, in the hearts of our children. We should be teaching our children about these great people. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة